Hello, YouTube. Me again, I'm back. Water seems invisible until it isn't. Over the last 72 hours, a global reckoning has unfolded. Governments are overhauling regulation, cities are writing nine-figure checks, and every day people are starting to feel it in their water bills, tap reliability, and infrastructure spending. This episode of QuonTradeTalks scans 5 real-time stories and ties them together with hard data, including how much households are paying more, what major upgrades cost, and what systematic failures are costing communities right now. We're focused on impact, not headlines, so let's dive in. Markets don't move when the crowd expects them to. They move when pressure builds quietly underneath the surface. This is Quan Trade Talk, where we track capital before it becomes obvious. Capital moves quietly. We move earlier. Quan Trade Talk. Capital moves. We move earlier. Quan Trade Talk.
Basics, a major incident declared as tens of thousands of people across Kent and Sussex started the week without water.
Hard work. To flush the toilet once takes 3 bottles of water for one person. Basic hygiene, everything. It affects everything.
We haven't had water, like I say, since midnight, Friday, Saturday morning. So,
quite frustrating.
yeah.
It's this area, East Grinstead, that's most heavily impacted, with 16,500 people without a supply. Some of the people turning up here haven't had any water for 3 days, and they're fed up.
So you're not working with that, are you?
No, nothing at all now.
Hannah runs a hair salon, a business that relies on water.
And absolutely no water?
Yeah, absolutely nothing. So, yeah, nothing.
The weekends are her busiest time. No water meant cancelled clients.
I mean, it's caused a massive impact for us. We never close it. It's our complete last resort. But having no water means we can't operate. We could offer haircuts, but most people want colours done. And obviously we can't wash colour off if we have no running water. We could use bottled water, but that's not enough to get a colour off.
The UK government just moved to create a super regulator to fix chronic sewage spills and water outages that have plagued households. But the cost of fixing decades of underinvestment is now landing on consumer bills. After decades of neglect, water companies in England and Wales announced a €104 billion investment. This plan is through 2030. It's aimed at fixing aging mains, upgrading sewage works, and modernizing storm overflow systems. To fund it, bills are being hiked by around 36% on average, which analysts warn will squeeze already stretched households. Now, that's not theoretical, that's real money out of people's pockets. In a country where 1 in 5 households already struggle to pay their water bills, even a €31 rise per year can feel like a tax. Meanwhile, sewage spills increased sharply by as much as 60% in 2020-25, often releasing untreated waste into rivers and seas. That's water contamination and price hikes. A double whammy for families and businesses. How does this escalate into our thesis? 1. Households are paying bill increases directly tied to infrastructure catch-up costs. A classic CapEx pass-through situation when utilities must fund massive upgrades. 2. Water quality failures are triggering regulatory overhaul and spending, not just press releases. Look out for government rollout of the detailed regulatory bill, as well as breakdowns of actual price impacts on household water bills. This will be important in the future.
Agency. It has accomplished a lot in Trump's first year back in office, including stopping billions in funding for climate projects and terminating DEI officers. EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin joins me now. Sir, I'm told that you have done more to cut red tape than any other department in Washington. Is that accurate?
I would say that once EPA is done with our deregulatory actions, we will do more deregulation than entire presidential administrations across every agency combined when you look back at history. We inherited that much of a mess from the Biden EPA. We are in the process right now of finalizing a lot of different decisions of deregulatory proposals that we put out to the American public. And I'm excited about the weeks and the next few months ahead. The first year was great. Q1 of 2026 is going to be even more exciting.
The U.S. EPA's proposal to streamline Section 401 Clean Water Act review is designed to reduce permitting delays for water and other infrastructure projects, potentially getting capital deployed faster. But here's the real-world escalator. Regulatory speed doesn't eliminate costs, it just accelerates spending. Whether states or surface water utilities are fixing lead lines, replacing aging mains, or installing PFAS treatment units, those upgrades still cost money. Estimates tied to the bipartisan infrastructure law show more than $50 billion of federal funding for water upgrades. But even that still requires local matching funds, rate adjustments, or new revenue streams altogether. Faster permitting will get projects approved sooner, but for everyday residents, that often translates not into lower costs, but higher costs sooner. Now, how does this escalate into our thesis? Well, speed and permits won't eliminate the funding gap, it just moves the capital outlay forward, often forcing utilities to adjust rates or leverage new financing. Things to watch out for: January 28th and February 13th are massive dates. These are the comment deadlines on the EPA rule, and then you have early litigation that could stall program rollouts. So these will be major factors going forward.
Last summer, this elementary school learned that their well water was contaminated with toxic chemicals, so they switched to drinking bottled water. It's a situation that's playing out in wells, rivers, and lakes and farms all across the country. The culprit? PFAS, or per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances. Basically any kind of carbon atom that's had all of its hydrogens replaced by fluorines. This compound's used in many products because it's extremely effective at resisting heat, water, stains, and oils. But because PFASs are nearly impossible to break down, every time we wash or throw away in landfill products containing them, they enter our environment and contaminate our drinking water and food supplies. They're so ever present in the world around us that they're now in the bloodstream of virtually every single American. Since no level is safe, as these forever chemicals accumulate in our bodies, they're increasingly associated with health issues like birth defects and cancer. This is a look at this alarming problem, the ways Americans across the country are working to solve it, and some common sense steps you can take to prevent exposure. The danger PFAS poses came to light when a class action lawsuit showed that the chemical giant DuPont had for years been dumping thousands of tons of it into America's fresh water supply, even though they knew how hazardous it was. The settlement resulted in tens of thousands of residents participating in a study that found strong links between drinking water contaminated with PFOA and diseases like kidney cancer, testicular cancer, thyroid disease, and high cholesterol.
It's overwhelming. Every day, a new disease is tied into these endocrine disrupting chemicals.
In a recent talk, Dr. Paul Segal explained the growing list of ailments his patients are suffering from.
There's a fairly good causal link between these chemicals and the development of not only obesity, but diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cognitive dysfunction, with an acceleration like Parkinson's disease.
Our next story: New York's PFAS and landfill leachate webinars might sound like policy wonk stuff, but they signal mandates that require action. In states mandating PFAS limits, utilities are now installing advanced treatment systems, new sampling tests, continuous monitoring, and specialized filters. These systems don't come free. Across the United States, PFAS compliance upgrades can cost utilities millions per facility, often funded by rate increases or local bond issuances in addition to federal and state grants. Pennsylvania, for example, has used state infrastructure funds to invest over $288 million in water and wastewater projects, including lead line and contaminant mitigation, before this year. The real-world impact on people: you see, communities will ultimately pay through higher water bills or local tax and fee increases to cover the cost of new treatment infrastructure. They have to make the money back. Small rural utilities with smaller rate bases will likely need state revolving loans, extending repayment over decades. Why does this escalate into our thesis? PFAS compliance isn't just regulatory costs, it's operational costs that flows to households. Things to watch: January 27th and February 11th are New York PFAS sessions. Local utility PFAS project awards also follow within that time frame.
30 years ago, I was on the engineering team that designed and constructed this treatment facility. Unfortunately, due to deferred maintenance during this period, today we are spending more than $337 million to repair and upgrade this treatment facility. It will be a costly lesson for our county. So today's groundbreaking marks a turning point. We at the department know what's at stake. We are moving forward with urgency and care. This plant must come into compliance, and the community deserves a wastewater system they can count on.
We're going to take some pictures.
When a wastewater modernization project yields 36% more biogas output and cuts biosolids by 74 wet tons a day, that's great engineering. But how do communities pay for it? Usually through rate adjustments, municipal bonds serviced by rate revenue, federal and state infrastructure swaps. A single $200 million price tag underscores how expensive it has become just to bring systems up to modern standards. And that's a single project among many across the country. I think if you look at what FEA's ultimate goal, they want to fund 140 projects, and they only have a few billions to do so, right? If you look at the average cost that they project per project based on that goal, this project size is way higher. But on the human impact, higher utility bills for ratepayers, longer repayment timelines, and more frequent infrastructure bond measures on local ballots. This escalates our thesis because it's simply proof households aren't just paying more, they're paying earlier and in larger chunks than planned. Things to watch going forward: local bond issuance calendars, as well as rate case filings with state utility commissions. These are going to be important signals to where we're going and how this whole thing accelerates.
In parts of the city, water pressure levels are slowly returning to normal after ice jams on the Allegheny River blocked the intake at Pittsburg Water's treatment plant. Mamie Ba takes a look at what crews had to do to keep that water flowing.
A barge shattering through the river's icy armor.
It's pretty, for one thing. I didn't expect it to cause any sort of issues for, I don't know, the water company or anyone else.
Desmond Carpenter is with the Allegheny River Trail Park. He tells me they haven't been affected despite being so close to the river.
No changes in the water pressure for us right here.
But water pressure was a concern for the Pittsburg Water treatment plant. Pittsburg Water says the ice held firm, impacting intake. As a result, the barge and tugboats were sent in. The steel broke the ice and the pressure followed. Pittsburg Mayor Corey O'Connor was at the site this morning. He says Pittsburg Water is monitoring the situation.
We've been coordinating with PEMA and FEMA in case the situation gets any worse, but they are out there breaking up the ice and getting the flow going a little bit better than it was a couple hours ago.
Moving forward, Pittsburg Water says staff will manually continue to break the ice to keep it away from the intakes. They'll also use hoses and bring in the barge again if necessary. They don't think the ice caused any damage to the intake. Carpenter says this is something they're used to seeing.
When ice blocked Pittsburgh's intake, residents didn't just lose water for a few hours. They felt real disruption: low pressure, emergency bottled water stations, and utility overtime for clearance. Infrastructure spending tied to resilience, redundancy, winterization, backup intakes, it's expensive. And when it's lacking, the cost is social and economic. Lost work hours, emergency procurement of bottled water, and accelerated replacement planning. On the ground level, people see water restrictions or boil notices, increased municipal costs that flip to ratepayers, and lost economic output in affected neighborhoods. This escalates the thesis because service failures becomes capital budget drivers, not anomalies. Things to watch going forward include announced resilience investments post-incidents and local rate adjustments tied to reliability upgrades. To conclude, today's water stories aren't just headlines, they're pocketbook realities. In the UK, 100 billion euros in upgrades means 36% bill increases and households already struggling. In the U.S., federal water infrastructure programs exceed tens of billions, but much of the spending still ends up on local budgets and ratepayer bills. PFAS compliance isn't hypothetical, it's cost in action, requiring millions in new equipment and ongoing operations. And system outages like the ice blockage show resilience, it's not free. That's why the watership thesis isn't just about better pipes, it's about real money flowing into water infrastructure and real costs landing in people's lives. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. share with a friend so you can know to put capital into water infrastructure.